This is a retirement rule that keeps appearing online, and it may be the simplest financial framework anyone has ever used, called the 50/50th rule, depending on whom you listen to. It is either a shortcut to a comfortable retirement, or a dangerous simplistic idea that could keep you in your 70s for money. We, analyze what it actually means, track where it comes from, stress test math, and figure out what it means now, for people ages 45 to 65. Before we talk about the rules themselves, we need to understand what they are trying to solve, because the country's retirement crisis is not the focus of discussion. The numbers are cruel and measurable. The Federal Reserve's Consumer Finance Survey shows that the median retirement savings of all households in the U.S. are about $87,000, which is the median, meaning half of households save less than that. Fidelity reported that as of the third quarter of 2024, the average 401k balance was about $134,128, but the average was dragged down by the top. So this figure is more realistic. According to the 2023 Household Economic Well-Being Survey, only about 31% of miners told the Fed that they felt their savings were on track. Things are getting worse. The Bureau of Economic Analysis tracked the personal savings rate at the end of 2024, accounting for 3.4% to 4.6% of disposable income. Financial planners recommend at least 20%. The wide gap between what people save and what they need to save means tens of millions of Americans retire because they know they don't have enough money. In this environment, the promise of one thing becomes irresistible. So what is the 50/50th rule, and where does it come from? That is where things get messy. Because unlike the 4% rule published by William Benjamin in the Journal of Financial Planning in October 1994, the 50/50th rule does not trace back to a single source. There are no foundational papers, no original authors, no coherent definitions. The label is accompanied by several different views on personal finance, which are not exactly the same. That is how the most watched version works. Save 50% of your income and live on your own. No detailed budget breakdown, no spreadsheets, no formulas. Split your salary in half and invest in half. The second explanation focuses on portfolio allocation, where 50% of the retirement portfolio is stocks and 50% is bonds. Pioneer's Target Retirement 2025 Fund for retirees already holds that allocation, close to that ratio. There is nothing radical there. The third version regards it as a savings target, with the idea that your total retirement savings should be equal to about half of your lifetime income. When three different definitions drive under the same name, the antenna should be raised immediately. But the save half, spend half version is popular, so that is where we be looking. The ideological roots of the idea are not new. Elizabeth Warren and her daughter, Amelia Warren Tyagi, promoted the 50 divided by 30 divided by 20 budget rule in your total value, the ultimate lifelong financial plan, published in 2005, which divides after-tax income into 50% demand, 30% demand, and 20% demand. The 50/50th rule further strips away the structure, erasing the line between demand and desire, and telling you to limit all spending to half of your income. The FIRE action further fueled the idea. Peter Denny, known online as Mr. Moneybeard, has built his entire philosophy on a savings rate of 50% or more, arguing that anyone who continues to save half of his income, no matter how much he earns, can retire within 10 to 17 years. Math is radical, but the logic behind it holds. Compound growth is a heavy burden when you invest half your income over a long period of time. Let's talk about whether the algorithm really survives contact with reality. Social Security paid an average of about $1,907 a month in retirement benefits, about $22,884 a year as of January 2024, and announced a 2.5% cost of living adjustment in 2025. For the vast majority of retirees, that is not enough to make them comfortable. The project has never been designed to be your entire income. The 4% rule also has a companion concept called Rule 25, in which you need to save about 25 times your annual expenses to retire safely. Spending $50,000 a year means you need $1.25 million, and $80,000 a year to push your goal to $2 million. This is the essence of the 50/50th framework. If you train yourself to live on half your income throughout your career, your annual expenses are already low. You don't try to replace 80 or 90% of your pre-retirement salary just because you've never spent that much. Your savings target drops sharply compared with people who spend all their income. The real power lies not just in accumulating, but in scaling back the numbers you must reach first. Now let's look at the portfolio. Should your pension be divided into stocks and bonds? An old rule of thumb links your bond allocation to your age, which means that a 60-year-old will hold 60% of the bonds. The updated version subtracts 10 or 20 from your age to account for longer life spans and growth needs, which means that the 50/50th ratio may apply to anyone in their 50s to early 70s. Depending on the version you follow, The long-term historical yield of 50/50th's bond portfolio land is nominally 8–9% year, depending on the relevant index and time period. This is respectable. The trade-off is that the growth potential is lower than the heavy warehouse portfolio, but volatility declines in a meaningful way, which is very important in monthly stripping. What happened in 2022, however, exposed risks. The S&P 500 fell about 19.4%, and the Bloomberg US Composite Bond Index fell about 13%. Stocks and bonds fell together, an unusual punishment for a balanced portfolio. A 50/50th split absorbs damage from both sides. Wade Pfau, of the American College of Financial Services, has been studying safe withdrawal rates for years, and his research suggests that given the current valuation and interest rate environment, the traditional 4% figure may need to be reduced. Morningstar supports this view, and the December 2023 study pointed out that an initial exit rate of close to 3.8% is more sustainable. In a multi-million-dollar portfolio, that is the difference between $40,000 and $38,000 a year, a gap that has worsened into a serious problem for 3 decades. We need to be honest about the problems with these methods, because they are real, not small problems. The biggest one is obvious. For many American families, saving 50% of their income is simply impossible. According to the Census Bureau, the median household income in 2023 is about $80,610, leaving $60,000 to $65,000 after tax. Depending on your state, living on half the income means $30,000 to $32,500 a year. It doesn't work if you're raising children in a metropolitan area or have any debt. Medical costs create another huge variable that cannot be explained by a simple percentage. Fidelity estimates that the average retired couple who turned 65 in 2023 will need about $315,000 in medical expenses when they retire alone, excluding long-term care. Inflation has also frustrated the fixed percentage plan. In June 2022, the national CPI reached 9.1% year-on-year, the highest level since 1981. Your rent and groceries don't fit the budget equation. The deeper issue, one that the Board of Standards for Registered Financial Planners and most trust advisors have been discussing, is rule of thumb, not financial planning. Your tax status, pension income. If you have one, real estate net worth, health status, and family obligations, all make your retirement math different from others. One number doesn't say that. So after all, is the 50/50th rule worth it? The answer is between total uselessness and total adequacy, and where you land depends on how you use it. Behavioral economics studies like Sheena Iyengar of Columbia Business School show that complexity leads to paralysis. When people face too many choices and too much information, the most common reaction is inaction, the worst retirement strategy available. The Tiadia Institute reports that only about 57% of American adults have financial knowledge, meaning that nearly half of American adults do not have the basic knowledge to independently build personalized retirement plans. For these people, a simple order to save as aggressively as possible and invest in a balanced portfolio may be better than a complex plan they will never start. John Bogle, who founded Vanguard and died in 2019, has spent decades articulating this view. Low cost index funds, age-appropriate stock and bond allocation, sustained savings. This is a far cry from what the 50/50th rule is trying to convey. When simplicity becomes complacency, danger comes. Suze Orman has said publicly that she believes it may take $5 million or more to retire comfortably, a figure opposed by many financial planners. But it is difficult to refute information that her potential retirement costs are higher than expected. An attractive rule shouldn't fool you into thinking you've done it, and you haven't done it. So, the 50/50th rule, is this the simplest new retirement plan? Absolutely understandable. Save half, spend half, balance your portfolio. The real wisdom lies in the idea, especially the insight that controlling spending is as important as maximizing returns. But understanding a concept and enforcing it are two very different things. If you are 50 and save $87,000, the national median, you can T-switch to a 50% savings rate tomorrow and expect everything to get better. You need a realistic plan, maybe a real advisor. The best way to use the 50/50th rule is not a strict prescription. Think of it as a direction. The greater the gap between income and spending, the most important number in your financial life, the more choices you create for yourself. Whether you land at 50%, 30%, or 20%, it is more important than you're in the right orbit. If you're watching this video, you are ahead of 69% of Americans who tell the Fed they don't feel on track. In fact, you are thinking about retirement plans, which allows you to really change your results. If that works, consider subscribing. We break down these financial concepts every week, not fluffy and hype, but the information you need to make better decisions with your money.